The Astoria Grand Hotel was buzzing that night. Inside its opulent ballroom, golden chandeliers sparkled, violins played softly, and the air was heavy with the scent of roses imported from France. This was no ordinary gathering. Tonight was the celebration of what was supposed to be one of the largest business mergers of the decade. Lenora Enterprises, founded and led by Amara Johnson, and the Vanderbilt Group, one of the most powerful old-money white dynasties in America, Amara, arrived with calm grace. She was tall, striking, with deep brown skin and sharp, confident eyes that spoke of years of struggle and triumph. She wore a long, emerald silk gown that hugged her figure without being flashy, elegant, commanding, but understated. Every step she took seemed to echo against marble floors as reporters' cameras flashed. People whispered her name as she walked. That's her. The youngest black woman to lead a Fortune 500 company. Self-made, too. No inheritance, no shortcuts. Unbelievable what she's built. For Amara, this was supposed to be a night of victory. She had clawed her way through a world that never welcomed her, a world where her gender and race were often treated like strikes against her. Yet here she was, about to close a $900 million merger that would secure Lenora Enterprises' global dominance. But the Vanderbilts had something else in store. At the far end of the ballroom, Richard Vanderbilt, the family patriarch, stood with his children and cousins. They were the embodiment of inherited wealth. Tailored tuxedos, diamond jewelry, an air of superiority so thick it almost choked the air around them. When Amara approached, Richard gave her a stiff smile, extending his hand half-heartedly. "Miss Johnson, glad you could make it," he said, his voice dripping with false politeness. "Of course," Amara replied evenly, shaking his hand. "This is a historic night." Charlotte Vanderbilt, his eldest daughter, whispered something to her cousin but made sure her voice carried. "Historic? Please? Let's not exaggerate. If you ask me, this is more of a publicity stunt." They laughed quietly, looking directly at Amara as if she were invisible. Amara felt the sting but kept her composure. She had dealt with worse in boardrooms and negotiations. Tonight, she told herself, she would not let their arrogance rob her of her moment. The dinner that followed was more insult than hospitality. While dignitaries and senators were seated near Richard at the head table, Amara was deliberately placed far down the line, next to junior executives and assistants. The waiters skipped her glass more than once when pouring champagne, and when she finally raised her hand, Richard chuckled. "Don't worry, Ms. Johnson," he said loudly. "You'll get your turn. In this family, we always make sure everyone's taken care of, eventually." Laughter rippled across the table. Amara's chest burned, but she smiled politely. Another family member, Henry Vanderbilt, leaned in toward a group of reporters. "Look at her gown," he whispered loudly. "It's not even couture. Can you imagine her at Davos or the G7? No class, no polish. She's out of her league." More laughter. Cameras flashed. Amara's hand tightened around her fork. She thought of all the nights she had spent alone building her company, all. The rejections she had endured, all the times she had been told she didn't belong. Yet she had made it. And now, on the eve of her greatest victory, she was being mocked like she was a child playing dress-up. After dinner, Richard Vanderbilt rose to speak. He tapped his glass, commanding the room's attention. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "tonight marks a proud moment for the Vanderbilt Group. For over a century, our family has built and preserved one of the strongest legacies in American business. And now we graciously welcome Ms. Johnson into our fold." His words were deliberate. Graciously welcome, as though he were doing her a favor. Richard smiled as cameras turned toward him. "Of course, we all know who built this empire, and while we appreciate what Ms. Johnson has managed with Lenora Enterprises, let's be honest, this deal is more about us lifting her up than the other way around. Polite laughter filled the air. Amara felt her stomach twist. Charlotte stood and raised her glass. "To Miss Johnson," she said mockingly. "May she enjoy this rare seat at the table." The crowd clapped half-heartedly, many guests exchanging uncomfortable glances. Some seemed embarrassed for her. Others smirked, waiting to see how she would respond. The moment had come. An assistant rolled out the contract, neatly placed on a table with 2 pens. The media surged forward, cameras ready to capture the handshake and signatures. Amara stepped up to the table, her heart pounding. She looked at the contract, at the ink, at the promise of $900 million. A lifetime of work, struggle, sacrifice, all leading to this, and yet, what would she be signing? A deal with people who laughed at her, who humiliated her, who treated her not as an equal but as a token. Her hand hovered over the pen. The room waited. Then Amara set the pen down. Slowly, deliberately, she stood tall and faced the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice steady but carrying to the furthest corners of the ballroom. The laughter died instantly. "I came here tonight expecting a celebration of partnership, of vision, of progress." She turned toward Richard. "But what I received instead was disrespect, condescension, humiliation." Gasps, whispers, reporters furiously scribbled notes. "I built Lenora Enterprises with no family fortune, no inherited billions, no safety net, just hard work, sleepless nights, and sacrifice. I came here ready to merge with the Vanderbilt Group, because I believed we could build something greater together." Her voice rose. "But tonight, you reminded me of something important. Money cannot buy respect, and I refuse to sign away my company's future to a family that still measures. Worth by skin color and last name." The room erupted in murmurs. Amara grabbed the contract, held it high, and in one swift motion ripped it in half. The sound of tearing paper echoed like thunder. Gasps filled the air. Cameras flashed wildly. Some guests applauded, others shouted. The Vanderbilts stood frozen, their faces pale. Richard Vanderbilt sputtered, You can't walk away. Do you have any idea what you're throwing away?" Amara locked eyes with him, her expression fierce. "I'm not throwing anything away. I'm keeping my dignity, and that's worth more than every dollar in your empire." With that, she turned and strode out of the ballroom, her heels clicking like gunshots against the marble floor. The cameras followed her, flashes exploding as the crowd parted for her like waves before a storm. By dawn, the story was everywhere. CNN breaking news. "Black woman CEO walks out on $900 million deal after racist insults." Forbes, respect over riches. Amara Johnson shuts down historic merger. Wall Street Journal, Vanderbilt's in crisis after humiliating gala fallout. On social media, hashtags exploded. Stand with Amara. Respect can't be bought. Power and dignity millions. Rallied behind her. Business leaders praised her courage. Investors began pulling away from the Vanderbilts, their stocks plummeting. Politicians who had once courted their influence quickly distanced themselves. Meanwhile, Amara's phone wouldn't stop ringing. New offers poured in from companies around the world eager to work with her, not out of pity, but out of respect. Lenora Enterprises' valuation soared past what the Vanderbilt deal had even promised. She had not lost. She had won. On her terms. Months later, Amara sat in her glass-walled office at the top of Lenora Tower, overlooking the city skyline at sunset. She leaned back in her chair, sipping tea, as her executives reported the company's record, growth. Her mind drifted back to that night at the Astoria Grand, to the sneers, the laughter, the torn contract, and she smiled. Because she knew that in that moment when she walked away, she had claimed something no billion-dollar deal could ever give her absolute freedom. And from that freedom came real power.